Welcome back to the CeltsAreHere weekly bulletin. We've managed to get this going, myself and Quinny. Hopefully we'll have some other guests join us over the next few weeks. But welcome to all our YouTube viewers, Spotify, Apple Music. It's great to have everyone listening and hope you're all enjoying the podcast. Unfortunately, we start with a piece of sad news. This week, the Celtic support learned of the passing of club legend and Lisbon Lion, John Yogi Hughes. John signed for Celtic in 1958, 1959, made his debut against Ford Lanark in 1960. Scored in his debut as a 17-year-old, would play in a Celtic side coming through the ranks with the Kelly kids, players like John Clark, Stevie Chalmers, Billy McNeil. A lot of high points in his Celtic career, but at the very start, there was a lot of low points. Celtic experienced barren years in those early period of time until the arrival of Jock Stein to Celtic. Probably one of his standouts before the arrival of Stein was scoring in the Old Cup Winners' Cup against MTK Budapest, against Bratislava, to take Celtic on to play MTK Budapest in the semi-final, Celtic's first ever European semi-final. When Jock Stein arrived at the club, he played in the Scottish Cup final as centre-forward in the 3-2 victory against Dunfermline, which many see as the turning point and the start of the golden era of Celtic Football Club. From that point onwards, he scored 2 goals in the 1965 League Cup final, 2 penalties, might we add, something that's not regular for Celtic in any match, never mind a cup final. He played in 5 out of the 9 games on the way to the European Cup final in 1967, and we rightly remember along with his other Lisbon teammates as a Lisbon Lion. He played other significant contributions to Celtic's titles. Another treble came along the way in season 68-69. And Yogi also scored a very memorable goal against Leeds United at Hampden Park in front of a crowd of over 136,000 as he tormented Jack Charlton, beat the mighty Leeds, with goals of that night coming from John Hughes and Bobby Murdoch. He was forced out of the club in 1971, along with his Celtic teammate Willie Wallace, as Jock Stein started to dismantle the Lisbon Lions. And ever since that day, he's remained firm in his support to the club, being a true Celtic supporter throughout his whole life, right up until the very last. He'll be fondly remembered by all the Celtic support, and everyone at CeltsAreHere wishes John Hughes' family our very best wishes, and we're thinking of them at this sad time. Quinny, with the passing of John Hughes in the past year, we've lost Charlie Gallagher, Bertie Auld and John Hughes, and we're now down to a squad of 5. With the passing of John, I think another part of the Lions story goes, but rightly so, they'll always be remembered.
Totally. And, you'll never walk alone to John Hughes and his family as well, of course. I think, when I think about, Bertie Auld and obviously John Hughes now and this kind of stuff, like, it is a real testament to the impact they've had on the club that we're still talking about them, 60 years on, the achievements they had. And obviously the Lisbon Lions is a special one, but to listen to you go through there his honours list and his kind of career bio, if you like, it's amazing that the contribution he's made and obviously the memories he's left behind. I only know him from hearing my grandfather talk about him, when I was a kid and stuff. Obviously, I've never seen the guy play or anything, but heart goes out to his family, and yeah, he's a Celt forever now.
Yeah, he's one of those distinctive characters too that has obviously their own song, and that kind of comes from those early years that I spoke about in the early 60s of Celtic not doing so well and knowing that Big Yogi could change the game. And his goal scoring record, 416 appearances and 189 goals ever since he retired in 1972-73. Only one Celt has scored more goals in that time than him, and that being the King of Kings, Henrik Larsson, which pretty much says it all to kind of make that list of top 10 Celts of all those goals. 189 goals is a phenomenal return, and for a person who was played mostly out in the wing, he wasn't always up front.
Yep, for sure. And what I always think as well, like, I remember when Jimmy Johnson passed, his funeral, coincidentally enough, was on my birthday, and the impression I got, like, being a Parkhead that day, and it's something that's always kind of stayed with me. Even I think we've really seen this with Bertie Auld last year as well, is like when these guys have passed, it's like it's more of it's a very sad time for everyone, but it's also a very celebratory moment, because there are people that have achieved great things in their life for all of us. We've all kind of shared in the joy of that, so it's of course sad times for him and his family, but it's definitely a great opportunity to kind of celebrate his achievements as well and what he did for the club.
Yeah, remember him properly, absolutely, along with all his Lisbon teammates, which, rightly so, as you say. It's important at 55 years on from the Lisbon achievement that we're still talking about it, because it really set the foundations for the modern day Celtic, and without it, God knows what kind of football club Celtic would be had we not at that turning point over those barren years. But yeah, John Hughes will be fondly remembered, and I think our older support, our older generation, or our grandfathers and whatnot, remember Yogi fondly, whether they were standing in the Celtic end of the jungle and whatnot, singing Feed the Bear and seeing him torment defenders. One that I missed out there was 5 goals against Aberdeen on a frosty pitch when he was wearing a pair of sand shoes, which, is kind of Celtic folklore and stuff. So, absolutely phenomenal career at Celtic from 59 to 71, and he'll be always remembered. Moving on from that sad news, it was a carnival atmosphere, I think you could say, Quinny, on Sunday getting back to Celtic Park. It was sunny. Callum McGregor was unfurling the flag. It was all well and good before the game, and then the tifo, absolutely phenomenal. Top marks to the Game Brigade North Cove Celtic for the organisation. That looked absolutely fabulous.
Aye, it was brilliant, and it really made splashes, across world football as well. And it's one of these things again that, like we're talking about with Yogi there and with the tifo. It's like, there's very distinct details that separate Celtic, from a lot of clubs in world football in terms of, the body of the club, the stature of everything, And I think Joe Hart's comments, I don't remember exactly what they were, but his comments were quite telling about it. It was something along the lines of, I had no idea what a flag day was, but this was amazing, or something, because it was breathtaking.
This is
the
a
whole
new one
thing.
to me. Something along those lines is a new one to me.
Yeah,
it was breathtaking.
Yeah, so it was a fantastic effort, and I say I thoroughly enjoyed it. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it to the game. I was actually really hoping to make it there, but unfortunately not. But it was fantastic viewing, and carnival atmosphere is probably the right way of putting it, because the weather was great as well, and that always helps to these kind of afternoon kickoffs. At Parkhead, if it's a nice day, then it's party time.
Yeah, especially when they're 4:30 on a Sunday. But we'll get on to kick-off times and TV blackouts a wee bit later on. In terms of just the whole game, what was your thoughts on it? I thought Celtic were pretty much in control, we deserved their goals. I think we probably could have scored more on the day, but I think you're just happy to get off to a winning start. Compared to last year, the contrast is absolutely worlds apart, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And I had to kind of check myself through the game, because I agree, 2-0, you really couldn't ask for on paper a much better start, to be honest. But I was watching the game live on my YouTube channel, and honestly, I had to check myself like 2 or 3 times in the game, because I was like actually getting pretty frustrated and pretty upset with some of the stuff that wasn't happening, or things that were just a wee bit off the pace. And I had to shake myself up. Well, we're winning 2-0, obviously towards the end of the game, behave, this is well, we've done well. It's Aberdeen at home and all the rest of it. And then when I heard, the manager's comments afterwards, I think we'll be talking about the manager later on at some point as well. But I felt a wee bit better, because I thought, he's obviously seen something quite similar there. But I think it was a convincing enough win. Aberdeen didn't really trouble us too much, but I definitely, I think any pre-season hype is quickly kind of faded from some of the guys, like Rio Hatate in particular.
Yeah, shared sentiments, I think, as you say there from yourself and Ange Postecoglou. I think just one kind of thing to touch on, we don't want to go too much over the Aberdeen game, because I'm sure it's been covered plenty over the past week. Stephen Welsh, good for him to get in the score sheet. I think he's did really well stepping up. Ange was praising him to the hilt last week. I imagine he'll keep his place for this Saturday's game in Dingwall, and fair play to him, coming in, rises above 3 Aberdeen defenders and bangs the ball right into the back of the net.
Yeah, it was fantastic. The 3rd minute or whatever. He was my man of the match. I thought he was like the best player on the day, to be honest with you. I know Jota had got the award and obviously had the spectacular goal, and he is going to win the man of the match award. But Welsh, if you look at his statistics and his, what he did in the match, it was head and shoulders. It was fantastic. He's got no right to score that goal, but you're saying there he beat 3 men. One was backstepping, one was running onto the ball, and then one was behind him, so he had people covering. He's got no right to win that ball. It was absolute calamity from Aberdeen, and they'll be raging. But fair play to the big man, nice and calm, takes it back, just drops it down in the bottom corner, and hope to see more of that from him when he gets his chances.
Yeah, we'll take that. I seen Hamish Carton have a wee cheeky tweet on Sunday saying, that was our first headed goal we'd scored since Victor Wanyama against Barcelona, which was met by really, and I think that has became that idea that Celtic don't score from corners. The last one obviously I remember is Betis last season. Again, it was Stephen Welsh, but it's something that you'd probably like to see more creep into your game, a wee bit more. But yeah, fair
Totally.
play to him. And again, I saw a graphic by Lost in the Half Space on Twitter, and they were saying that compared to some of the other centre halves, he's the one that always wants to take that risk pass. If you remember the
Yep.
goal over in Warsaw, it's his ball to Hatate that then breaks for Maeda that we get the goal from. And again in Sunday he was doing that. Instead of passing it to Callum McGregor or to Cameron Carter-Vickers, he's playing the ball forward. Which again, listen, you might lose possession with it, but again you might end up going on to score a goal from it. And I think that just says a lot probably about his development as a person and player under Ange Postecoglou, that he's got that belief in himself to do that, and he also feels comfortable in his footballing ability to do that.
I make you totally spot on. I think like the most impressive thing I've seen from him is in that exact same vein in terms of taking the risk going forward. There was like two chances or at 2 points in the second half. He did one of those like Van Dijk or Van Ayer moves where nobody was making a pass for him, so he just ran like 10 yards into the opposition half, and then played a pass. And I think the second time he actually made it to the edge of the Aberdeen box before laying somebody off. And we don't really get that from Carter Vickers. I don't really think that's part of his like strengths, if that makes sense. He's more like,
just the fridge, isn't he? That's the
exactly.
nickname. The fridge just sits there. That's it. That'll do
That's
us.
it. And I think that's maybe where we've seen like some calamity with Starfelt in the past, is when he does try and take 5 yards. So it's good to see Welsh have a bit of that in his game for sure. That forward, because these centre backs and even some midfielders, a lot of people will discredit what they do in the game because it's like, oh, they're just passing the ball 5 yards left to right or whatever. But it's those opportunities where they get in between the half spaces, like a Twitter man, and or break the lines and all these other football buzzwords. But when the centre back can do that, it's really valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. In the way, Ange plays football, I think he's had a big emphasis on there are players behind the forward players, creating what he described as a platform for them to go and basically do their stuff. And obviously still just get an abundance of attacking players. But if you don't have, guys like Stephen Welsh or Callum McGregor or whatnot, getting into those spaces, taking those 5 yard passes on and then progressing the play, you won't get up the park, you won't score, which is all about Ange Postecoglou's football. It was an absolute cracking goal from Jota. Probably enough's been said about that over the past week. He doesn't think he's scored a better one. I spoke to him after the game, and he seemed quite happy with it, but not too overly excited about it. But yeah, I thought the manager's comments after the game were very, very interesting. The one that stood out for me, Quinny, was when he was asked by journalists in the press room whether it was just a case that Celtic had to get into a rhythm of play, and the thing that basically click type thing, which he'd retorted back and saying, he doesn't believe in that. The season's now started and he expects a high level of performance from his players. I thought those comments were refreshing. What about yourself?
Yeah, I totally agree. And like I mentioned earlier, like I was like Hatate for the whole time he was on the pitch, really was doing my head in. Just way, like you'll probably remember there was like 3 instances where he just broke an attack down with like a crap pass or just reading the play wrong and whatever. And I thought he was really off it in a lot of senses. And what do you call it? The manager picked out Jota in the first half, saying he was quite wasteful. I'd have probably lamented Kyogo first half a bit more maybe than Jota necessarily. I think Jota did well to create stuff. But yeah, no, it is very refreshing to hear the manager not be happy with 2-0, because to use his own, to paraphrase him, you don't make 10 chances a game to score 2, you make 10 chances a game to score 5 or 6 or something. You want to take as many of your chances as possible, because you just don't know how the game can turn.
No, absolutely not. And again, one of the questions that he was asked was about the squad. Obviously, we've seen a wee bit more depth added to the squad. They've brought in 7 new players this summer, and he was asked about that, in terms of how he keeps players happy. And again, I thought he'd give a cracking answer and saying, if they're not happy enough at Celtic, I'll read out the actual quote which I've got here in front of me. The big man, what he said, just get it up here. But yeah, he basically just dismissed that and said, here it is. A bit of technical. He said, "They are at Celtic Football Club. If that is not happiness for them, I don't know what is. They can find it somewhere else. It is not my job to keep them happy. My job is to make sure that we get the best out of them and give them every opportunity, and they will all get opportunities. They know that. I think that's very refreshing for us as fans because one, we know that there's a squad there, we know that there's a belief in a squad there, and two, he's coming out and he's basically saying to the players here, once you get the opportunity, you're going to have the chance to impress me, you better take it.
Yeah, for sure. And those comments are probably largely aimed at James McCarthy from what's to be believed that's out there in the kind of ether. He's looking to maybe get out. I think Sunderland is maybe the team that's
That's the one
maybe
that's
going
been
to offer
linked
him
with.
something.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I think that really ties into what we've kind of surmised from the manager already with his like squad philosophy, that he's telling everyone the same story. Like, we're going to play a lot of matches. That these are the rules that I expect you to play in the squad. You'll get your chance through the season. And maybe some sort of conversations happened, or maybe the manager's just went, you know what, James, I've given you enough chances now, and maybe I don't think you're going to cut it now that we've got in White, and maybe Edeguchi's still fancied quite heavily by the manager by all accounts,
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I think there's a lot of Celtic fans who probably still don't think that Ange Postecoglou had too much to say, and James McCarthy probably coming to Celtic in terms
Agreed.
of the whole contract. He's here till, was it 2025? He was signed in a 4-year deal, 22 appearances last season. I think it's like 4 or 5 starts, which doesn't look like a player that the managers get too much hope in. Obviously, brought him on and flagged it to get him the medal. I think that was a nice thing to do. But if James McCarthy's probably looking for first team football, I just can't see him getting it. He's at that stage of his career at 31. He probably wants to play. Having had so many injuries over the course of his football career, so it's an interesting one to keep the eye on. I think, Quinny, what I find most interesting about the McCarthy rumours is that I do imagine that James McCarthy is on a fair whack of money at Celtic, and if we could shift him off the wage bill, it might free up money for someone else. Obviously, the news broke that we were interested in the Montenegrin winger from Rubin Kazan, and it broke down because due to the situation with the invasion of Ukraine, there's a lot of difficulties in basically having a transfer negotiation and paying the actual fee to Russian clubs. So there's an issue there. Celtic have pulled out it, but I think it's good that Celtic are looking in that market. It was something that we'd spoke about last week. Actually, they wanted another forward player, and possibly if whether it's McCarthy, Ayeti, whoever, if somebody in the big wages checks out, we might be looking to bring in a whether it's a loan by an option to buy a permanent move, another forward player, another player to add depth to the squad.
Yeah, and I've got no idea where you squeeze another forward in, but if we're going to go get another one, then let's hope they're good, because again, to kind of paraphrase the manager, he doesn't want any of the players to be comfortable. He wants them all on their toes all the time, and he doesn't seem like the apologetic type. Like if people are, like I've been in workplaces, I'm sure many people listening, yourself included, have been in these places where you've got some really good managers in like any workplace, and they just take no shit. They don't accept anything less than results, and we like the manager because obviously like he gets the club and he's got that kind of personal touch. But I do very much see him in that mold of being like a top end winner. Like this is what is required and nothing else is going to be accepted.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's came across, the whole season last year, and it's already coming across very early on this season. He was getting to know the players last year. He knew that things weren't going to take off right away. It's about keeping the lid on things. But once you see where Celtic could get to last season, that there's a bigger expectation. I think putting the players this season, probably from the manager, not that he'll put that pressure on the players, but he'll look to get performances. And you're going to be entering into the Champions League, and you need to be ready for the big boys because they're not going to rock into Glasgow and not think that they probably can comfortably beat us. So we need to be able to challenge these teams, and it's about creating. I go back to, I think it was after the Sparta Prague game nearly 2 years ago now, where Callum McGregor, I think it was, touched, or it was nearly in himself, touched on a culture change that didn't happen at Celtic. That culture change definitely happened last year, and it's now about changing, probably the mindset in European football with Celtic, that we can compete, we can challenge, and we can give teams a good go once again, because, I'm a bit too young to remember those Martin O'Neill kind of days in Europe, but you'll remember really well where we went toe-to-toe with the best in Europe. I know the game's moved on since then, but there's no reason why, even latterly with Gordon Strachan too, obviously, but we can't try and get some of those special nights back to Celtic Park this year, hopefully.
I completely agree, and like I guess this will probably touch into something else that we'll be coming to, but like the financial like period that the club's had in terms of being able to be like tight-fisted over the last like while, and kind of scrimp and scrave on transfers, it does feel like this manager's getting back like no other manager previously has, and I'd probably include Brendan Rodgers in that. And I know we spent money under Rodgers, but this guy's building a full new team, and it's almost two to a position. There's not many legacy players left over from when he came in, and I think that whole attitude is like, it is a mentality thing in terms of approaching Europe. I watch a lot of European football, and we'll all be familiar with like Red Bull Salzburg, for example. And I know that they go out and snipe up wonder kids and stuff, right? But that aside, they're just like an elite. It doesn't matter that they're in Austria or that they don't even spend that much money. They just get really good people in, And at home, they last year and the year before in Europe, they've been like the old Celtic at home. When any teams went to Salzburg last year, like Bayern Munich had a tough time there. All the big teams did, And that's just that, mentality that we need to get back. It's just, it's hard to have that from the fans when you really don't back the players and the teams. And I think about since Martin O'Neill left to now, the quality of squad that we've had has never been as good as it's been now, in my opinion, in a lot of ways. And you go into those group stages thinking, well, we've got Venegoor up front and we've got Zarafsky. Let's see how well we do. And nothing wrong with those guys, but now it's like I was saying before, Jota's Stardust material. We've seen that with the goal at the weekend, and it's the first time that we've got these top end players where we can have that attitude change and go, do you know what? No, we are going to, they're coming to our place and they're going to have to beat us because we are pretty bloody good, and the fans are our 12th man and all the rest of it. So yeah, I think we're maybe on the way there with the recruitment we've had and obviously the manager we've got, but long overdue.
Yeah, no, it's long overdue. I mean, that holds that I've not winning a knockout in European football since 2004 is hanging over Celtic. And, last season there was no excuses against Bodo Glimt. I know they went a wee bit further into the tournament. They'd already had those great results against Roma. Roma was eventually knocked them out. They went on to win the Conference League, but I think a lot of Celtic fans would have hoped that would have given a better account of themselves over those two ties. But, I thought we played very well at times in Europa League last season. We were unlucky against Leverkusen, who are a top quality team. And
Agreed.
Hopefully we take that wee progressive step once again this year. We've not lost any of our, important players that you would say. I know obviously Tom Rogic and their Beaton's checked out. That's not due to Celtic, sending them on for a big fee that was in their own accord. So yeah, I totally agree with you in the squad that it's in a good place, and we hope that we do get back to those days. In terms of that, probably leads in nicely to our next point. That our chairman that is overseen that poor, what you probably could describe as poor run in Europe. Obviously, when we're talking about Ian Bankier, when he first arrived at Celtic, we'd get to the last 16 of the Champions League under Neil Lennon. We'd then consecutively qualified for the Champions League group stages under Neil Lennon. And then I think, Quinny, in that season, we started to see Celtic, change in Europe a bit. I remember AC Milan coming to Celtic Park. We did okay over in the San Siro. We got scalped 3-0. We get that real doing in the Nou Camp. And then, the 2 years after that, in Champions League, we failed to do it. Brendan came in, bit of success, and then ever since, season 17-18, we failed to qualify for the competition. Firstly, what is your thoughts on Ian Bankier stepping down from his position as chairman in January next year?
Well, to be quite honest, I'm not really up on a lot of the internal politics of the boardroom and all that kind of stuff on Celtic, to be quite honest. But I also know, like, he's, the chairman, he's the kind of, him along with Lawwell over the last period of obviously the culprits for all good and bad and everything in between. But
it's a good one. I like that. I think I'll start using that, all good and bad and everything in between. I like that.
Covers all the grey, because there is some, like, it's one of these things that in different periods, I've been really supportive of some of the business we've done in the transfer market over the years, and some of the stuff. But one thing I think when I'm listening to you kind of regale on like the European runs or lack of that we've had, is that so many of the teams were like half baked, where it was like we need one more guy to really solidify the defense, or really we've got no left backs, or we've got no strike. It's always just been that little bit, or 5 of them are loan players and they're all gone in the summer, and you've got nothing to build on. You're then starting from scratch again. There was so it's it's definitely been a mixed period, you know, but I think, like I kind of alluded to maybe a moment ago, like I think maybe some of the financial, you know, kind of, you know, the prudent nature of the board over the last 10 years for the large part is maybe facilitating us pushing the boat out a bit firmer than now. You know, like I don't think I can understate this or overstate this enough, but like Vinicius Souza, I know we didn't get him, right? But that is like an elite target. And we've not been after like a real elite target. Like I think probably since like Hartson and Sutton and these types of guys, really, you know, like a known guy that everyone or lots of clubs are interested in vehemently, you know, like it was PSV, Fenerbahce, Benfica, Ajax, all the elite kind of, you know, feeder teams, if you like. Everyone was after this guy, and fair enough, he went to Espanyol, it's a bit of a curveball. But seeing us being back in the mix for that guy Michu as well is an elite talent. That's the kind of place that we need to now be. That's the sort of waters we need to be fishing in, and it's, you know, even being mentioned credibly in these conversations is a sign of progression. Hopefully, we actually get one now.
Absolutely. And just to maybe, you know, we did transfers last season, you know, we'll happily give them praise for doing that, you know, to do the option to buy Baby Vickers and Jota and get both over the line. You know, I think they deserve great credit for. But just in case of that whole thing, I think probably one of the things that frustrated Celtic fans more than anything, me and Bankier, was his comments at the previous EGM when he was asked about European football, just what we were talking about there. And he said that Celtic couldn't compete, which I thought was a real defeatist attitude and something that I don't think Ange Postecoglou probably shares at all with Ian Bankier.
I would definitely agree. I actually remember those comments coming out at the time now that you're mentioning that. Yeah, I totally agree. As a mentality thing, and it's unfortunate that I think, like, you know, we've got the new kind of sporting director guy in as well. It's Lawwell's son or whatever.
Mark
from CFG. So, you know, guys like him and Postecoglou, like, you know, they understand that, like, if you get the numbers right and you get the people right and you cover the right metrics for the strategy on the pitch and whatever, then, you know, results can be had. You know, they're there to be gotten. So I do hope that is an old attitude that's maybe leaving with his tenure. But then Lawwell coming back in, which is the speculation, maybe then throws a spanner in the works towards that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Obviously, there's I think a lot of people are just assuming that Peter Lawwell will return to Celtic as chairman. He's not actually left Celtic. He's still part of the non-executive directors board. He's very much a part of the match day at Celtic in the boardroom still, since he left as CEO last year before Michael Nicholson took over from him in that role. The only kind of spanner in the works I would throw into this is, compared to the position of CEO, I think the chairman position is very different now compared to what it maybe was when, you know, Bob Kelly and Desmond White back in the day was holding a position. I don't know how much influence or role, and people would say right away, which Peter Lawwell will have a big influence at the club. But in terms of just the actual role of chairman, I'd imagine it's nothing more than, you know, turning up in the match day, chairing the board meetings, obviously, and speaking at events and basically being more of an ambassador for the club. And obviously one of the things that was re-emphasised and why kind of an excuse was given to why Peter Lawwell was staying as a non-exec when he was his membership of European boards, which Celtic wanted to keep a hold of, which I do think is important, that Celtic do have a say at the top table.
I totally agree, and that's one of the things that I've always like found admirable about Lawwell is he makes those connections. He's a huge networker in that sense, and like money, like see what all the progression that will happen in football in terms of money distribution and TV deals for like the European stuff that we want to be at the table for. You know, you can't buy the connections he's got and the relationships he's got with these people over the last like 10, 15 years, however long it's been. So for that point of view, we definitely don't want to be, you know. We don't want to be not called anymore. You know, they're getting a meeting together, all the big clubs. We don't want our club not to get called, you know. We want to be there too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, you know, we learned from that Dermot Desmond interview that came out towards the end of last season, you know, that Peter Lawwell had he was the most influential figure in getting Ange Postecoglou to Celtic. So we know that there's a relationship already there. And Celtic's transfer strategy has changed over the past season. Obviously, as you rightly mentioned, his son Mark Lawwell now in a position, you would like to think that if there was any return, there would be no controversy or clashes in there, and everyone would just get on with their jobs as they are just now, with Michael as CEO and Mark taking up that new role as recruitment director, whatever the official title is. But it's one that I'm sure we'll keep an eye on and we'll be covering all along the way, but there's been no official announcement yet, and at this point in time it's speculation. Celtic might surprises and come away with another name who I've maybe not heard of, or promote somebody else from within. Moving on from that, big game at the weekend. It's a tough trip. I think the first point I'd like to actually touch on is the ticket pricing, and this has came up just in recent days, Quinny. Last season, 25 quid for a ticket to Dingwall. That's without your buses, your food, your drink, whatever else. Now 28 quid, and that's going to be something I think we see all across the board from football sides. Once again, there's been a campaign set up. I say once again because boys who sit just at that kind of curve between the main stand and the Jockstein stand, now at Celtic Park, launched the campaign 2 years ago, well over 2 years ago now, trying to promote 20s plenty. It was scoffed at by other Scottish football clubs, but now we're in a cost of living crisis. People don't have too many shekels in their pocket. Everything's rising. The cost of ticket prices is rising. And I think a lot of football fans are just saying enough is enough here and something needs to be done.
See, the one thing I never understand with ticket pricing is surely every club wants to fill the thing, you know?
Absolutely.
So, like, if you're going to sell 500 tickets and make, I'm just going to make up numbers, right? Let's say you're somebody, right? You're going to sell 500 tickets and make 10 grand on ticket sales. You could make probably 10 grand and get 5,000 people in by charging them a fiver or something, you know, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I agree with that sentiment that ticket pricing, particularly in Scotland, like, needs to behave a bit, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, these kind of campaigns getting some set up are refreshing. It's good that fans are saying, wait a minute here. I think what else they're trying to do is make sure that tickets are accessible for anybody. I seen a tweet the other day, and it was saying basically this game at the weekend coming up, Aberdeen St Mirren, ticket offices are closed, there's no pay at the gates, blah, blah, blah. It just seems as if there's barriers getting put in the way for fans to go and support their team. So that's disappointing. But, as you say, fill the thing, make money. I mean, Kilmarnock are going to go down there in just over a week's time. 30 quid for down there, newly promoted Killie. We're only getting one stand, under 4,000 tickets. Now, it's not about, I don't have a grudge with football clubs like Hearts who have sold out the season tickets in the Roseburn and will fill the Roseburn for when we go to town. That's absolutely fine by me. But when you're going to be in the Chadwick stand and going to have a look around, the Moffat stand will probably be empty. You kind of wonder yourself, why are you coming out with, statements saying you're maybe losing money or whatnot, and you're not filling your stadium? Get bums and seats, get fans into the stadium and make some atmosphere.
That's it. Because like closing ticket offices is just reducing costs. You just don't want to put wages on for that day, and then, to basically, the reason that I kind of said what I said a second ago is rather than like looking after your own stadium for like 38 games and trying to make sure that you fill it as much as possible, it's more like, oh, well, Celtic are coming to town, we'll just charge all them 3 quid extra each. That's an extra 10 grand. And that will deal with the Lecky bill next month or, whatever it is they're up to. And yeah, like fair enough, that's revenue they can guarantee on that Celtic will fill a full stand all across Scotland, but equally like it's short-termism, and unfortunately was, that's a big problem that we've even been talking about with the transfer policy in the past and whatever. It's just the best solutions in football look after fans and they look after the long-term situation of everything, these kind of like, oh, we'll just flip the tickets up 3 quid and we'll just turn off all the ticket offices. It's just a plaster.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there needs to be something done about it. And, I think the only way change is going to be affected is if fans from across the board. It can't just be one club, token up for people. Yeah. It needs to be clubs all across the country to come together and do something about this. So, again, want to keep an eye on. Moving on from the actual ticket price, don't worry, this is not the moaning CAC, but I think these are important issues to probably be addressed is the TV blackout on Saturday. So moving away from the folk that are lucky enough to get tickets for the game up in Dingwall, anybody who doesn't have a ticket for the game won't be able to watch the game, Quinny, because during the COVID season and the year following that, just last year, Sky Sports, who obviously had the rights to Scottish football, allowed clubs to stream games via pay-per-view, bringing some extra income into clubs. It generated income if games weren't being televised. Scottish football is a really rotten TV deal, and I think this just sums it all up that, the Scottish champions are away to Ross County. Again, you'll have another 11 fans of other clubs would say, oh, but our club isn't on the telly every week and blah, blah, blah. That is the whole point, that, Ross County fans, if they can't get along to the stadium on Saturday, won't be able to watch the game either. And this is a continual thing. It goes for, Celtic Rangers 3 o'clock kickoffs and whatnot. If they just gave the clubs the rights to do this, yes, it would generate extra income for the clubs, but it would accommodate fans a lot more. And I just don't see why some kind of agreement on that can't be had.
It's a really old rule, like the Saturday 3 o'clock blackout. I think they brought it in, I can't remember when, but they brought it in donkeys ago, and it was to make sure that fans didn't stay at home and watch football, but they still went to games, because all the games in England kick off Saturday 3 o'clock. So it's mainly to encourage grassroots attendance, if you like. But especially, like you say, like I think any TV deals need to revise this ownership of decision making for that kind of thing, because our, let's just say, football economy is completely different. Like if you're Ross County and you can sell like a couple of 100 stream passes for a couple of quid, to your own fans, to away fans, whatever, then that's great revenue that you should have access to, and you shouldn't be under the restrictions of this English football 3 o'clock blackout nonsense.
Yeah, absolutely. The actual TV deal, the money wise, is appalling compared to that. And yeah, the only kind of good thing about it is it's a 3 o'clock kickoff, and that fans don't need to get up at the crack of dawn to try and get up to Dingwall. So, I've been there myself, 6 o'clock, getting on a bus. It's not the funnest experience in the world.
Nope.
You're lucky to be able to do it, but that's the only real positive out of this. It's a 3 o'clock kickoff, but it'd be even more positive if it was a 3 o'clock kickoff and it was on for fans to watch in some kind of form. But it just basically sums everything up that's wrong with Scottish football, that you've got games like this, clubs can't make extra revenue, and supporters can't watch their team, and you should be encouraging that. I think over the weekend there was a stat that came out that said something like over 132,000 fans turned out to watch their teams across the 4 leagues, which is great, for a small country like Scotland.
Yep.
People are getting along, they're supporting their teams, but if you can't make it as accommodating as possible to support your teams, you will chase fans away. And in the economy that we're living in, when people don't have a lot of money in their pocket, it's something that they shouldn't be trying to do, because it's probably an easy option for people to say, I want to spend money in football. So
that's it.
It's one that's disappointing. I'm sure people will have other ways and means of watching the game. Obviously, I'm talking about looking over the old fence at Dingwall and nothing else. But
get the cherry pickers out.
Yeah, or a big cheeky FaceTime or whatever you want to do. So there'll be a way of people, I'm sure, will be able to watch it. But hopefully, Celtic again continue their winning ways. Just in terms of that game, many changes to the team for you, Quinny, or would you kind of stick with what we went with at the weekend?
I'm moderate. People might think I'm really ripping on the guy. I really love Hatate, right? I think he's going to be great this season, right? But I'm a wee bit spooked by this whole gum shield thing. Like, obviously, he gets subbed off with kind of a bloody mouth or whatever. Has anyone really clarified why he's got a gum shield? Like, has he had like?
Why is it blue? Is my bigger problem, to be honest.
Well, yeah, that's a problem as well, of course. But so obviously he gets a wee elbow to the face, blood starts coming out. I think it's maybe more of a problem that he's wearing the gum shield. That's what I thought at first. But I don't know. I'm looking at websites and stuff like that, like prepping for the weekend, and he's marked down as injured because he was subbed off injured. But it's all giving me the heebie-jeebies. And on top of that, Turnbull did so well when he did come on. Turnbull did very well against Ross County last year as well, if memory serves me. Mm-hmm. So if there was to be a change, I would suspect that might be the only one. But otherwise, yeah, I think it will be copy and paste.
Well, I'm getting for a good few changes, because I think Tony Ralston might come in. I think Ange might look to play the fixture just a wee bit more, just like maybe did at Livingston last year.
Cool.
That's nothing against Juranovic, who I think played very well against Ross County last season, but I just think might just look for a wee bit more steel at the back, and Ralston might be more suited when he's going to rotate. In midfield, I think Turnbull might come in there too. And I also think you might see Giacomakis come in to play up top. I know he missed a sitter at the weekend, but I think he might just look to rumble things up a wee bit. So I think possibly 2 or 3 changes going at the game on Saturday. But hey, I'm not Ange Postecoglou, and whatever team Ange picks, I'm sure we'll hope we'll get a result, and we trust him to get that result. Just in terms of transfer speculation, rumours, etc., before we kind of wrap up, there's been a lot made about Matt O'Reilly and Leicester at this moment in time. And I was listening to Go Radio the other day, and John Hartson put a price tag of somewhere in the region of 18 to 20 million on O'Reilly. What is your thoughts on that?
I think for having him for only 6 months, I don't think we can really price him much higher than that. The difference, because we're talking about the board kind of progressing their thinking and the club progressing its kind of motivation, like European wise and whatever. And the incentive that the board and the club has for doing this is they'll be able to sell players for lots of money. If we're successful in Europe and we do well on the big stage against the big teams.
The carrot's now there to dangle, isn't it? Because previously there was that, risk in inverted commas, the qualifiers and all that. But now that they know that, winning the league just straight in, I think that risk is now gone. Sorry, just buttoning you there, but I just thought it's kind of probably why we're at that point, isn't it?
It puts us in a position of strength that we don't need to, because any transfer window gone by, when we had any activity that looked as good as what we've had, it's like, right, okay, well, we need to sell Ayer. Oh, okay, well, we need to sell Tierney. Right, well, we're selling Edward. There's always somebody funding the whole project. But this summer, we've not sold anyone. So I think we're definitely a lot more secure. But because we've not had O'Reilly really go on a stage yet and do a big dance for us, I don't think we can really ask for much more than 18 or 20. But if we play group stages, he gets 2 goals and an assist or something, and he looks great against, the seed 1 team or something, then we're asking for Bassey money.
Whatever that is, astronomical figure is, absolutely. But yeah, I agree with you on it, because I think when all the Juranovic talk initially came out with Atletico Madrid and blah, 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 when you've got players especially that are possibly going to be going to the World Cup, O'Reilly's not a definite. He's played under 21 for Denmark. He's only broken into the team this year. Whether he goes to the World Cup with Denmark is another question. But we know the guys like Juranovic is a cert to go. The stock will only rise, and it will rise in the Champions League, and it will rise at the World Cup. And at this point in time, I'd probably have to agree with John Hartson, but I just wouldn't be for selling, because I think Ange's spoken about this idea of building a beautiful house. Unless he thinks he could go out and get a player as good as Matt O'Reilly, etc., I just wouldn't be for selling Quinny, because that 18 to 20 million, I think, is only going to rise. And again, I think Celtic need to be bullish in a way that, now players can go for big fees from Scotland. There's no this nonsense that they can't make that step up. How many players have did it now? We see Italian teams coming in for, guys like Lewis Ferguson and whatnot. So, yeah, absolutely. I would be holding out for a big fee, but I just wouldn't be selling them.
Yeah, and the sort of player O'Reilly is as well, the personality that comes through, as well as his style of play. If he does perform on the big stage, if he does kind of realise his potential in that sense, then the English Premier League isn't necessarily even what he's aiming for. Maybe he's aiming to go to Germany or Spain or something, Italy, like you say, So with him, because he is Danish, I think we all thought he was kind of kidding on at first, but I've seen interviews, he speaks Danish, he does the whole thing, He's a real Dane.
His dad's quite an interesting character, by the way. He was in a rock band and all this stuff, and he's quite well known in the music industry. So quite an interesting guy. I think he's actually younger than me, which I just don't like. But I've got that stage where there's Celtic players younger than me that play in the first team. I don't like it, but it means that I can shout "son" at the games now and not like daft,
Do you know, I did that at the weekend, and I've got 2 kids, and I was actually saying this to my missus last night. I was like, I'm saying the word "son" far too often in my life now. I'm getting
go on, son, get the ball in there, son, or whatever. Yep, all that stuff.
I'm turning into an old man very quickly.
Yeah. Well, I got the games with my dad, so I've just kind of picked it up naturally, So it's right in there by the usual shouts of nonsense that come out my mouth at Celtic Park and away games. So yeah, and it's even worse now that, as I say, there's Celtic players that are younger than me playing in the first team. So just moving on from that, Tom Rogic still without a club. There was a wee bit of speculation and rumour about Ammonia, Nicosia, his old boss Neil Lennon. Whether there's anything in that, I know I don't have a clue about. I'm not really too up with separate football, and obviously Adam Matthews has joined Lenny over there. All that you probably see is he's maybe looking at it as a nice country to live in, and Ammonia is going to be playing European football. Obviously, he knows Neil Lennon well, and he's possibly been told by Graham Arnold to get himself a club, Rapid, and he maybe just sees this as a possible stopgap.
I hope to God this doesn't happen, to be honest with you. I think he's far and above playing in the Cypriot League. I kind of expected him to end up...
strange, Quinny at 29 to go to Cyprus, which is no disrespect to the Cypriot League at all, but I just think, the opportunity this year to play Champions League football, and surely you wouldn't turn that down to then go and play at a lower level. Well, yeah, you'll be playing European football, Conference League, but are you gonna go and do anything else in that competition? I don't know.
Yeah, no. So I hope to God it doesn't happen. I think it's a terrible move for him. The funny thing about Rogic is there's no one else like him, so it's hard to say, oh, a team like this could use a guy like him, because like Rogic is a particular type of breed. He's not an easy fit into a lot of teams and a lot of systems. In terms of his mobility and kind of injury record and whatever he's had as well. So I do understand he won't have his pick of the litter, but surely to God, man, he's got better teams than Ammonia and Neil Lennon coming after him. Adam Matthews is a bit different. So I think he was playing like League 1, League 2 in England or something. So
yeah, League 1 with Charlton.
So I'd take Cyprus over that, no bother.
You wouldn't take Celtic over though. You would take Celtic over it all the time, you wouldn't take it over Celtic. But just, wherever he goes, we wish him all success. I actually thought maybe a move to Japan might have been something that was on the cards. I know he'd spoken about, moving back closer to us. And again, you know how good a level that league is, having.
It would do great in Japan.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's an interesting one. I think if he probably went to Cyprus, we were talking about John Hughes, or maybe feed the bear, but like feed the feet. Probably they'd be shouting in Cypriot. However, you say that because yeah, I'd imagine he'd probably suit that style of football, but it just seemed a bit of a strange one.
Unless maybe, I'm just thinking out loud, I don't know how the Cypriot calendar works, but if they're maybe one of these summer teams, I don't know if they are actually, probably not. I was thinking maybe you just catch them for a couple of months, get back up to speed, play the qualifiers, whatever they're doing in Europe, because they will need to qualify. They're not walking into anything automatically, and then maybe use that as a wee springboard to go to Croatia or Austria or Switzerland or something.
It's an interesting one, but we'll see how that one progresses. But whether it's just rumour and speculation, we know at times the press can just link two players up just based on their former clubs or whatever, and some kind of connection. So just to kind of finish with, away to Dingwall, it'll be a tough old trip. We've already spoken about the changes to the team. What is your prediction?
I'd probably say a prediction is probably going to be like 3-0. I think it will be another good game. I think we'll have probably equal as many chances as we had at home, and I think we'll just be maybe a wee bit more clinical.
In terms of the wee dilemma I never actually spoke to you about, a lot of Celtic fans were saying at the weekend, Quinny, that Jota looked far more effective when he moved over to that left-hand side. Now, I really liked Isaac Maida, absolutely. And I think both their positions are strongest on that left wing. But for me, if you're probably looking at it, they would probably be tempted to play Jota more on that left-hand side. And I'm quite happy that both interchange in the game. But a lot of, critics and whatever else maybe be saying, Abad had a very good season playing off that right. We knew in the early parts of the season, and it was Jota, Abada and Kyogo, especially that Ferenc Varos game, the three of them up top were terrific. And it'd be interesting to see whether there's any kind of return to that, possibly just that kind of natural, Abada's the right winger, Jota's the left winger, and Kyogo the striker, possibly.
I think the manager really enjoys rotating them, because that was one thing I noticed. They switched over in the 20th minute, and then at the reset second half, they'd been back to their original positions. And then it was circa, I don't know, maybe about 15 minutes into the second half, maybe 20 again, is when they swapped around for a period. So it feels like a plan almost, or a strategy. And it kind of plays into, I think it was you I was talking to, there was a quote from Postecoglou where it was saying, like, somebody was asking him about second season, like, oh, do you think teams will know you better and all the rest of it? And his response was something like, most of the time, mate, they're not paying attention to the right stuff, or most of the time, I think you know the quote I'm talking about. But I think those little things, I think that's proper, the strategy. Is 20 minutes, switch sides and whatever. But Abada is great at putting the team on the front foot and the other team on the back foot better than anyone else we've got, really.
Yeah, I'm a big Abada fan. Still young, still plenty of time to develop, and we'll see how that goes. Just starting 11 prediction lineup from you.
Well, I would go with the exact same team basically that played against Aberdeen. I think the only risk is probably Rio. I don't know. I've just got the kind of, I don't know, I just kind of shake this feeling that I don't see him starting. I'd probably put Turnbull in over him, and otherwise I think it is same as last week for the most part. Yeah,
as I said, I'm going to be saying Ralston, Turnbull, and Yakimakis in for Kyogo. Possibly Hatate if he is injured, and Juranovic. So that's my thoughts on it. Just to tell all our YouTube subscribers, I know obviously we've got people listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Once we get to 3K, we will be giving away a signed framed Ange Postecoglou print. It's an absolute cracker of a prize. So if you're watching the video, please do like the video, and also please subscribe to the channel. We'll be giving us away to one lucky subscriber. Not too bad a prize to get your hands on. But just again to touch on the top of our show, we pass on our condolences and wish John Hughes' family our very best wishes at this point in time. Quinny, as always, thank you for joining me on the CeltsAreHere podcast.
Thanks very much.